Well, welcome back everybody. It's been a long time since the last video, but I can't wait to get started here. Today we're going to look at a simpler clock. This one here is my dear friends from Lithuania, their grandparents' clock. It's a Majak clock, built in the old Soviet Union. It's a fairly simple clock, so what I want to see is whether this, as we go through it, this would be an ideal clock for a beginner to start with. So let's take a look inside. Well, these Majak clocks were built in the 60s or 70s, which makes them over 50 years old now. So let's take a look. I've already removed the back. It was held, the back plate was held on with a couple of screws, so I've taken that off already, and we can just lift that out of the case. Looking at the front here, we have a crack in the glass, so I've managed to source a replacement bit of glass to replace this one, so I'll do that later. Majak actually indicated as MAAK, so abbreviation I guess of Majak. So when you look on the other side, it just has, we put the key back on the mainspring there, the mainspring itself, then we've got just the second, third, fourth wheels, and there's a platform escapement there that synchronizes everything. And so the first thing to do, it does work for a few seconds and then stop, so I think it just needs a very good clean. I can see some dirt on the teeth of the wheels in there, so we'll take it apart, completely apart, give it a good clean, and then put it back together. So the first thing we have to do with any clock is to unwind the mainspring. There's a lot of power in that spring, and we don't want to start taking the wheels out, because otherwise the whole thing is going to just explode and not a good end. So to take the mainspring off, we need to unwind it. Now, how do we do that? Well, normally there is a ratchet that holds the mainspring tension, and you can lift it and then unwind it slowly to release all the power. Unfortunately on this one you can't get at the ratchet, it's right inside there. I mean, I can hardly see it myself, so I doubt the camera is going to pick it up. You just can't get access to it to unwind that and to release the tension of the spring. So what I'm going to do is put a cable tie around the spring and hold it tight so that it holds the spring tension. Then we can remove the assembly without everything unwinding. Traditionally you would use one of these loops. You would put it around the spring like that, and then release the ratchet and unwind it until this held it in place. But as I say, we can't get at the latch underneath to do that, so we can't use this, so that's why we're going to have to use a cable tie. Cable tie. The mainspring is attached to this post here, so if I wrap the cable tie around the mainspring, and then round the post, that should hold it in place. Right, that's securely tied. Undo the mainspring key. And then there are 4 nuts, 3 nuts to undo there. Remove the top plate, then we should be able to pull that mainspring off the post and out. Right, the next step, I'm going to take the hands off the clock. So to do that, I need to remove the front glass plate. So it's held on with 3 fold over tabs. So you just have to lever them out. And then it comes away. And the hands are held on. There is a screw, a threaded nut there, and that just unscrews. It's actually a screw which threads into the end of the shaft, and then the minute hand comes off. And the air hand is again just pressed on the shaft. I need to be careful when I take that off. So I'm going to get my couple of screwdrivers just to lift that off. The nut holding the hour wheel on seems to be a 4mm. Nut washer. That can now be lifted away. That's not coming off too easily, that wheel there. It's pressed onto the other side of the second wheel shaft, so I can't get inside it to lever it off. It's very, very tight. So I'm going to take this plate off next and remove the wheels from this side, and I should be able to get underneath there to be able to pull that off and release that. So it's a bit tricky, I have to say. It's not most easiest assembly to undo. Right, so this plate here is just held on with the one nut, which will be the 5mm. Nut off, it's got stuck inside the socket. Right, and with that, this should just lift off, exposing the wheels underneath. You probably see, if you can see in there, how delicate my pointed stick. How delicate these wheels are here. Very, very fine. So you have to be so careful not to damage them. Going to put a bit of oil around that post to release it. It's stuck. Don't want to force it. Comes the plate. And now hopefully you can see how delicate all this is, particularly that final wheel there. So let's just take these off one by one. See how dirty they are? See how dirty the teeth are? And look at this little baby. That's one fine wheel. And I should be able to get under there with my lever. I'm going to have to get two fine screwdrivers, one either side there, to lift that off. By lifting off this way, the wheel on the other side will release its grip. I just can't get a screwdriver in there, it's too fine, but I can get in from this side. I just have to do it carefully. went. That's the wheel underneath. And that's the wheel on the other side. Yep, very dirty. That just leaves the platform escapement. Now that all these other wheels I'll use just a conventional clock cleaner. I'll probably use IPA alcohol to clean those. But for the platform escapement, where you've got a fine hairspring on that final wheel, I've got to be careful when I'm cleaning that, obviously. The other thing is there are jewels in this movement, and they'll be held in with shellac. Now if I use IPA alcohol on shellac, it does have the habit of dissolving the shellac, and the last thing I want is to have the jewels coming loose. So what people tend to use is lighter fluid. That cleans the spring and assembly, and it evaporates, so it will clean it off but then evaporate dry, and that I think is what I'm going to use on that assembly. I could just dunk the whole platform assembly in to lighter fluid, but that's not going to get at all the pinions of the wheels where they go into the platform escapement. So I'm going to take it apart completely. It's the only way. The platform escapement is held on by 2 screws, and that will come back, so we'll come back to that later. Meanwhile, I'm going to clean the other parts, and then when I come back you'll see me taking this platform escapement apart. So looking out of the workshop window, I notice a swarm of bees has just arrived and settled on our garden hedge. So I collect the swarm and I put it into one of my homemade hives that I have at the bottom of the garden. And now I'm produced some sugar solution food to help them get established. So I take the lid of the hive off. Put the sugar solution bowl on top of the frames. This is a hive I built some years back. It's made of polystyrene foam, and it's like a traditional skep hive, but I've had the idea of putting frames inside so that we can look at the bees more closely. So putting the lid back on. Forgot to put the dividing piece in first, but on it goes now. bees are very placid when they swarm, and so I don't need to wear my protective gear. Put a bit of sugar solution down the side of the pot so that the bees can see it and go in and feed from it. Here we are, putting the hive lid back on. So let's have a look at this platform escapement in more detail. You can see on the left hand side there you've got the brass escape wheel, and that's driven by the clock mainspring and wheels, and that essentially rotates and rocks the pallet fork, which is underneath the balance wheel that you see on my right, and that rotates the balance wheel a prescribed amount to give the exact timing of the clock. And you can see you can increase or decrease the tension of the spring of the balance wheel with that lever on the top there, either making it run faster or slower. So, as I said earlier, to clean that, you can use a lighter fluid. But actually, in a mad moment, a year or so ago, I actually bought this, which is specially prepared for cleaning watchwork, mainsprings, and hairsprings. So I'm going to give this a go, but by all accounts, lighter fluid will do a very similar job. Okay, let's take this apart. First of all, I'm going to remove the balance wheel, and that's secured by one screw here, which removes that top plate, and I should be able to lift that off and into the fluid for cleaning. Screw doesn't want to let go. long screw. So I should lift this gently. And put it into the fluid. Now, hopefully you can see the pallet fork there, and that's held on by this plate with another screw there. So now we'll take this one off. Now we'll take the pallet fork off. Then I'll remove the escape wheel, again held on by one plate. Another long screw. The plate. Now the pallet fork can be lifted out of its hole. And I will leave those in the fluid for 4 or 5 minutes. The plate here is quite dirty, so I need to clean that too. Just a small amount of oil on the jewels. Right, so I've brush cleaned all the parts in IPA alcohol, all the wheels and the plates, and it's now ready to put it all back together again. Now it's actually 6 months since I took this apart, and so I've got to hopefully remember how it all goes back together again. One thing I noticed, although I had thoroughly dried all the wheels and everything after brush cleaning, there was a slight film of rust appearing on the steel parts of the wheel. And so what I've done is just used a small bit of Renaissance wax polish just round the wheels there, around the wheel shafts, so that it should keep any rust from coming back again. One of the issues, I suppose, of taking so long to put this back together again. Right, so let's get this back together. First of all, okay, in there. Glasses on. Right, that's the 4 wheels in position, and they're held on by this plate here. Which way around it goes. That's popped out. Ease it gently into place. Just make sure the wheels are turning. there. Hold in place. Screw it in. 5mm socket seems to work well. So they're turning nicely, and now the next step is to put the main spring back on. There is a sleeve there, sleeve there, and a sleeve there. This is the bit I'm not looking forward to. Main spring. Now the main spring itself I haven't taken apart, but looking at it, it looks clean. It looks like it's been oiled, so I don't have any real need to take that apart, so I'm not going to. That's on. Has it? By putting it on, it's actually rotated it in the hole, so I'm going to have to level that up. Link it to the wheel for the second wheel up. Like that, and put the plate on the top. This can be a bit tricky. Let's see. Leave them like that. Not the easiest to get in. The tension of the spring means I can't get that last post in, so I'm going to have to release this to push that, to get that to clip in. So it's in the second wheel, okay, so I'm going to put a couple of nuts on this side on two of the screws so it's not going to fly off. It's so hard to work with gloves on. Two nuts on just to secure that side. Right, so I've just got to get this third one in. I'm going to have to snip it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the brass ring on there so it's not going to expand too much. Ring on the top. That's it. Right, that's the ring on. So I should be able to cut that. And it ain't going to expand too far. Cut the tie. And that's it. Onto the ring. And there we are. So the clamp is now holding the spring tension, but it is now connected to the wheels. You can probably see if I turn the main spring, it's turned the wheels, so that's alright. So next step is to put the platform escapement on. While it's in this position, then I can remove the clamp and hopefully get some ticking. Okay, so now platform escapement. Right, so I'm going to make myself a brass bush, and I've got some brass rod here. I need to turn it and drill a hole through it. Now, fortunately, the standard chuck is too big to take that, so I need to use the collet to do that. So I'm going to now just change over the chuck for the collet chuck. Bit of wood just to protect the lathe bed. Lathing gear. And the chuck unscrews. Comes. Collet chuck. So the tailstock. Screws on. And then you can just tighten it. And that is now solid. We have a cover to protect the thread. Good. So here are some very fine drills, and I think one of these should do the job nicely. There we go. I can then put a drill in there and drill out the small hole. Smaller than the hole I actually need, but something that I can then broach out to the exact size so that the arbor of the wheel rotates nicely. This is the top. Just holding the movement with my hand. So I've replaced the platform escapement and it's burst into life. The old platform escapement, when you looked at it closely, the hairspring wasn't exactly parallel to the plate, so there must have been a warm bush on it, and so it wasn't reliable. So anyway, the new one's gone in and it's ticking away beautifully. So now I can put this movement back into the case. So we'll start off by putting the hands wheels on. Like that. That wheel is held on by a washer and bolt. Sorry, washer and nut. Oops. Not to be too tight. There's a spring. That keeps the air wheel away from the face. And now this can then go onto the movement. 12. There. And the movement's held onto the back plate by 3 bolts. That's it sitting down. That's right. And then there's 3 nuts to put on. fiddly. I'll just put those on off camera. Let's put it on the stand. Well, the clock's been ticking away now and it's test down for a couple of weeks and it all seems to be keeping good time, and so it's ready to go back into its case. Beginning of the video I said, is this a good clock for a beginner to start with? I definitely believe it's a simple clock to work on. There's not much to it, let's face it, but there are some complications which I found difficult to contend with, and they were as follows. We had the mainspring, couldn't get to the latch to undo that, and so I ended up using a cable tie. In fact, after taking it apart several times, I realized that I could actually use one of these rings around the spring, and then by removing the platform escapement and holding the wheels gently with my finger, I could actually unravel the spring until it was caught by the ring. It worked out an easier way of doing it than using the cable tie, but there is a risk to that you let go and it would start whizzing away without the platform escapement to keep it in check. So if you know what you're doing, that's one way around it and not having to use a cable tie. The other problem was the platform escapement itself. In the end I had to replace the platform escapement. I took the whole watch apart, the whole clock apart, and cleaned it thoroughly, including the platform escapement, and putting it back together wasn't that easy. I found that setting the hairspring back in between the two jewels that hold it in place, not an easy thing to do. You need to have very good eyesight and also some very fine tools to make it exactly in place before you put the plates together, and it took 2 or 3 attempts to do that. And after all that, I found that the wheel itself wasn't exactly parallel with the plates underneath, and so one of those jewels that hold the hairspring must have been damaged, and to replace that really is beyond the capabilities of me, so I ended up just buying a new platform escapement, which fortunately you could still get. In fact, I got mine from a clock supplier based in Ukraine. So putting it all back together, no problem, but as I said, there are easier clocks I would suggest for beginners to start with. Preferably choose a clock that doesn't have a hairspring. One with a pendulum would be a lot easier to work with. So I'll put that back in its case and it will go back to my beloved Estonian friends down in London, and then we can start looking at the next project. This clock was taken apart, would you believe, in January this year, 9 months ago, and what with other things going on, including me taking on a sports car to restore, generally working quite hard as well. I'm not retired, and then some summer activities in the garden. I'm now back into the swing of the clock repair again, and I want to get into this over the winter months, so please bear with me. I should be doing another project very, very soon, which I think you'll find very interesting. And thanks once again for looking at this video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. The count is going up. I'm over 500 and nearly 560 subscribers now coming up, so it would be great if you could do that. It's free to do, and it helps me a lot and gives me incentive to carry on doing these videos, which I'd love to do. So thanks very much for watching, and see you all very soon. Bye.